So the topic of this video is creating custom drawings on our activities. So going back to Swing, when we were using Swing with Java applications, we would override the paint method in our JFrames to control exactly what was drawn on screen, or we would extend a canvas class, again override the paint method, and then put that canvas on our frame. So you can do something similar in Android, and we're going to take a look at how to do that today. So I'm going to look at activity main.java. If I want to control exactly how my activity is drawn, I can override the onDraw function. Oops. So this would be similar. This is the equivalent of overriding the paint method in Swing. And instead of taking a graphics G object like it does in Swing, it takes something called a canvas, which is going to be a little bit confusing to those of you really comfortable now with Swing, because canvas means something completely different. Canvas in Android is almost equivalent to our graphics object. So canvas can actually draw on screen like we did with our graphics G. So remember, we used to be able to go G dot fill rectangle or G dot draw oval. We can do all those things with C dot, and then you notice I've got a whole bunch of draws. So I can draw text, arc, bitmap, circle, oval, point, picture. So that canvas now kind of becomes like our graphics G object. Now, if you look through all the functions that we have available through the canvas object, you'll see that we have an attribute that we have to pass in a lot is a paint, which again is a difference from Swing. In Swing, we could do it all with the graphics object, and we go g.setColor, but what paint does is hold the style and color attributes of the stuff that we want to draw. And so we're going to take a look at that. But instead of overriding onDraw, which we said was a bad idea in Swing, we, instead of overriding a paint function in a JFrame, we would do a custom canvas class, and then we would add that canvas to our JFrame. We're going to do the same thing in Android. Now, you remember from the last activity when we added buttons, or we got buttons, our buttons we could add to our screen by going add view. So everything's kind of treated like a view in Android. So what we're going to do is we're going to override, we're going to create our own custom view by extending the view class and then overriding how that view class draws on screen. Now, I could start doing something like this and make it a subclass inside my main activity Java file. What I'm going to do, just to make life simpler later on, if you get comfortable using XML, is I'm going to create a new Java class in here. I'm going to call it my view, and I'm going to make it its own file. So again, we're going to say extends view. I'm going to have to add the import, Alt-Enter for Android view, and remember, from inheritance, what we're doing is we're just copying and pasting everything from the Android view class into our class. So we have access to everything that the view class does. Now, first problem, there's no default constructor available in Android view.view. So what that means is whenever we create a new class, Java is assuming that there is a blank constructor that takes no arguments that can create this object for us. So when you're trying to create a myView, there should be a constructor that has nothing in it. That's what it's assuming. That's not the case. If you look at the the Android API and look at the view class, the constructors for the view class all take something called a context. And I'm going to have to add the import for context, Alt-Enter. So what context is it just tells your view stuff about the context and that it's being used. the size, the position on screen, stuff like that. So all we're going to do, we don't really need to understand this right now unless you're going to go on further. You can do more research into this. We're just going to call the constructor of the original view class by saying super, which is our parent class, and we're going to say super, pass in that context C, and basically what we're doing is saying, you know, view class, create a view for us, as you normally would. So we've overridden the constructor now, so we've got a valid constructor. Now we're ready to override the draw function, the onDraw function. So I'm going to go public. It's actually protected, so I should make it protected, but Alt-Enter to add the canvas. So now, as we said, paint is going to tell us some stuff about what we're drawing on screen. Alt-Enter to add the paint. So I'm going to say p dot set text size. Say p dot set color. To add the import for color. And now I'm ready to use my canvas to actually draw something on the screen, so might as well make it text. Okay, and we have to pass in the X and Y coordinates to position it on screen, and we have to pass in this paint object. So we've created a custom view that we want to put onto our screen now. So this is what our custom view is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to main activity Java. I'm going to say my view, and then in here what I'm going to say is now remember we have to get that context. Whenever we create a view, we need the context, so I'm going to say get base context, and now we've got our view. Now what I can do is, if I want it to all be one thing where I control it, I can say this dot set content view custom view. Let's run that. And fast forwarding a little bit, you'll see I've got my custom view. Hello world, this is a custom view, gets cut off. So I can play around with my paint settings and my context settings if I want that to wrap around. Now, next question you might ask is, well, how do we get our buttons? So let's say I go to activity main, I go design, refresh this, and I want some widgets on screen to do something. So a couple buttons. Notice if I run it now, this is just going to pop up because I've controlled how it's drawing. I'm not even looking at the activity main. You notice I've even commented out. So how do we actually add this custom view now to our screen once we have it set up? So I'm going to have to do a little bit of XML here. So let's get rid of this. So I'm going to go to the activity main XML. What I need is this layout. I need to control the layout. So you'll notice you'll see relative layout up here. I need to access this in my code just like we accessed our buttons in the last couple videos. So I'm going to say Android ID equals, and then it's at ID, let's call it layout. Okay, so I've just given our layout an ID, and you notice it's a relative layout by default. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to Java, and it's going to create a new relative layout object called L. And just like we got our buttons last time, I'm going to go find view by ID, r.id. And now that we've given the layout an ID, we should be able to catch it. And I have to add an import, Alt-Enter. And now that we have the layout, we can do stuff with the layout by saying add view, custom view. So let's run that. And here's the results. Here's my 2 buttons, and here's my drawing from my custom view. So I've got the buttons on screen, and I've got my drawing from the custom view, and I can access both of them. So next thing you might want to ask me is, how do we draw images on screen? Well, to do that, you're going to need an image inside this drawable resource directory. So what we're going to have to do is open up our File Explorer, and actually I'm going to go to Pictures. Luckily, I have a picture of the Montreal Canadiens logo, handy for just such an occasion. And I'm going to have to navigate wherever I've saved my Android Studio project. I'm going to go to Drawings. I'm going to go to App. Oops, wrong one. Android Main Res, which stands for Resources. I'm going to go to Drawable, so I'm in the, we back up, wherever I've saved my Android Studio project, whatever the name of the project is, the app directory, the source directory, the main directory, resource directory, drawable. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to paste my image here, and I'm going to save you a little bit of angst. It won't run if you have capital letters in there. It's all got to be lowercase letters. Yeah, there we go. Canadians. Okay. I'll give it a sec, and you'll notice now I have a Canadians.jpg available to draw in my activity. So I'm going to go back to main activity, or pardon me, my view, and let's draw that shape on screen. So I've actually got the code copied and pasted, so let's paste that in. I'm going to add imports for Android Graphics Bitmap and Bitmap Factory. So basically what this does, bitmap is a type of file, so you can look up what a bitmap is. It's basically an image file. We open up the bitmap that we have as in our resources, so we get the resource, and it goes by whatever the name of your file is. So if it's Canadians.jpg, which it was in my case, the resource will be called r.drawable.canadians. And then what I'm going to do is say c.drawBitmap. I'm going to pass in the bitmap that I want to draw, the x and y position, and a paint function. So let's run that. And here are the results. I've got my Montreal Canadiens logo. I've got, which drew on top of Hello World, and I've got my buttons on screen. So I've effectively customized how my view is drawing by creating my own view object and then just adding that to my project. Now, challenge for this one is just to play around with the canvas, see what kind of stuff you can draw. So play around with these objects, see any cool things that you can do. And then in the next video, what we're actually going to do is look at using threading to start moving stuff around our screen.